We're speaking about the road less traveled. Robert Kiyosaki, in his best-selling book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, speaks about two distinct concepts. Poor Dad concept tells us to get a good job and work for a pension. Rich Dad concept tells us to do two things: build businesses and invest in real estate to develop passive income. We're speaking about the road less traveled, talking about concepts by best-selling author Robert Kiyosaki in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We see in the story of Rich Dad and Poor Dad, a poor dad who was his natural father, who was a PhD professor at the University of Hawaii. And Rich Dad was the father of his best friend who became his mentor, who did not have a university education, but he was a very good steward and learned how to invest in things like real estate and business. Poor Dad concepts are: your home is an asset, get a good job and work for a pension, don't risk starting a business or buying rental properties, and all debt is bad. Rich Dad, on the other hand, said that an asset is something that puts money in your pocket, and a liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. So a home is a liability until it's sold or rented. Granted, it can build wealth, but in his terms, as an asset, it isn't something that is an asset until it is sold or rented. Now, he recommends doing two things, Rich Dad does: building a business and buying rental property. These are the two avenues that he used to build great wealth. He says, don't risk working your entire life for somebody else. And we can see this, the validity of this, when we look at how these corporations are laying off hundreds of thousands of people today, people that have devoted 20, 30 years or more of their life to these corporations. Rich Dad also says there is good debt and bad debt. Now, good debt is debt that other people pay for you. And that would be debt related to real estate. If you own a rental property and people are renting from you, they are paying for your debt. Rich Dad says this is good debt because you're not having to pay for it, and they are actually paying down your debt along with the growth of the value of the property. So it's a win-win situation. We're talking about the 7 steps for finding your financial fast track. Rich Dad in number 1 says it's time to mind your own business. He indicates that we should fill out a personal financial statement and set financial goals for 12 months, which we call short-term, and for 5 years, long-term. Choose a business based on your abilities and dreams. This ties in with the parable of the talents, that we can use our innate abilities and talents and build a business related to it for garnering our provision. Now, item 2, Rich Dad tells us to take control of your cash flow. He says people who cannot control their cash flow work for those who can. He says to get rid of bad debt and set up a budget. And we recommend that as well, to get rid of your debt. And if you are overcome by debt, you need to develop a plan of debt reduction. So get rid of debt and set up a budget. Number 3, Rich Dad says, know the difference between risk and risky. You need to develop financial literacy and financial intelligence. Rich Dad would ask, who is smarter, you or your money? In other words, are you enslaved to the money, or are you able to put money under subjection and make money work for you? And Jesus spoke about this and the fact that we can't worship God and mammon. We have to take control of the money. Point number 4, decide what kind of investor you would want to be. Type C is, I know nothing. Type B is, what do you recommend I invest in? And type A, the one that Rich Dad recommends, is to develop a confidence in seeking for investment opportunities. My wife and I, as we began many years ago in investing in real estate, would look for opportunities. And usually for us, because we started out with nothing, were properties that had a problem, that needed fixing up. And so we were able to buy those at a cheap price and fix those up and to develop equity and value by being people that could seek out investment opportunities. The same is true in business. Number 5, seek mentors. Rich Dad teaches that we need to find somebody that we can look to that is a successful role model. Not just somebody that wrote a book, but somebody that in their actual life has achieved and produced positive results. So we need to find mentors, somebody that can help us in this area. He also said that along with that, we need to focus on what's called passive income. And passive income is income from some type of investment that comes to you without continual work, like, for example, the 40-hour-a-week job. Now, real estate is a primary example of passive income. There's some work attendant to it. There is a stewardship, but once it's been rehabbed and repaired and rented, you can sit back and the passive income will come to you. Same thing is true of a residual income from a business, or capital gains from things that you buy and sell. There's people now that are making their provision by buying and selling items on eBay. So there's a multitude of opportunities for us out there to develop passive income. Other things are annuities and charitable remainder trusts and other financial instruments, but we're going to go into them a little bit more in detail in the Winners Ministry section. Number 6, Rich Dad tells us to make disappointment your strength. His quote is, "The reason there are so few self-made wealthy people is because so few people can tolerate disappointment. Instead of learning to face disappointment, they spend their lives avoiding it." I've seen this in real estate investment. For many people, if they have a little bit of a disappointment, they give up on it and say, this is no good, I can't do this. You have to realize that in any investment like that there's going to be disappointments, and you're going to have to learn, and God will give you the strength and help to achieve in those areas. Ultimately, Rich Dad says that we need the power of faith. We have to have ultimately an inner confidence to go through these disappointments, but we need an outer faith in God to help us in all of these areas. The bottom line is that the road less traveled requires intensive stewardship, but is the fast track to wealth building.